Hello, my name is Richard Corbett, and welcome to my weekly Human Design and Astrological Forecast for the week of Monday, March 10th through Sunday, March 16th. Now, we will be having a full moon later this week on Thursday evening in Virgo, and it's also our eclipse season. So, this will be a Virgo full moon with a lunar eclipse. Now, in ancient times, eclipses were quite ominous. There was always a prediction that something terrible was going to happen. Well, that has evolved with time. We know with modern astrology now that eclipses are a very regular mathematical occurrence, yet they still do bring a quality, a bit of an ominous quality. If you've ever watched one in person, there's just something odd about one of our luminaries going dark in the sky when it shouldn't. But they can often bring about a sense of letting something go or something ending, some sort of change is at hand. So we'll get back to that eclipse when we get to Thursday on the charts. But for now, let's take a look at Monday here, which I have on the screen. All of my charts for each day are run noon Mountain Time, except for the lunation, which I'll mention again when I get to it. So as we start out this week on Monday, we have the sun still traveling through Pisces in gate 22, which puts the polarity where Earth is and the opposition in gate 47. Saturn is still traveling through gate 22, and for the third time. If we remember, Saturn went into gate 22, did its retrograde movement back over 22, and we're now going through for the third time. And I think it's when these planets finish their retrograde period and go through these archetypes for the third time is when we have the real opportunity to glean what could we learn from that experience. And I think Saturn is really holding some of the keys to the week. So I'm going to come back to that, but wanted to note that we will be having the sun conjunct Saturn in gate 22 on Tuesday. Gate 22 is the gate of grace. It's found here in the solar plexus, in the emotional center of our feelings, our experience, and our relationships. You know, our solar plexus is really how we lean into the world to have that new relationship, to have that new experience. And we've been getting so much activations while we've had all these planets traveling through Pisces. We're still working on the new moon from a little over a week ago in gate 37 when we had the channel of community. And again, we're going to be having this full moon in gate 6 in a few days, but still a lot of Pisces energy on tap. This is offering this opportunity to lean into the watery world of Pisces, our dreams, imagination, mysticism, spirituality. But it is a liminal world. Things can still seem watery and murky and hard to figure out. And there's going to be a little more of that this week. So I think we're all getting an opportunity to deeply connect with our personal authority as we navigate these emotional waters we're experiencing right now. Speaking of emotional, I also want to mention that the moon is actually traveling through the fire sign of Leo. And while the moon is doing that, the moon will be trining Mercury and Venus in Aries right now. Now we have an interesting storyline here with Mercury and Venus. Venus has already turned retrograde and is moving backward in Aries, and Mercury is going to be turning retrograde later this week. And they're also about to form a conjunction. We can see Mercury is in gate 17, line 5, Venus is in gate 17, line 6, and that exact conjunction will take place in gate 6. But this is adding a little bit of confusion, I think, to the energy of the week. Mercury and Venus and Aries, well, normally we would think about Aryan energy, moving out into the world, pushing our boundaries with this self-assertion. But because Venus is already retrograde and Mercury is almost stopped, moving very slowly, preparing to turn retrograde, it's a bit of a confusing energy with these two personal planets moving backward in the sign of Aries. And at the moment, as I was mentioning, they are in gate 17. In human design, this is called the gate of logical opinions. It's part of the Ajna Center, which is about conceptualizing and rationalizing our mental world, trying to balance what's going on. And here we have this gate 17 of logical opinions. And our opinions are having to butt up against all of this emotional energy going on out there. So, we'll just have to follow our authority and see how this plays out. But I think this is part of the underlying major dynamics of the week is that we have all of this solar plexus energy coming from Pisces. Of course, we have the nodal axis still in gate 6 and 36, and that's why we're going to have an eclipse at the full moon lunation this week. And again, this planet Saturn in 22. Uh, Saturn, the planet of maturity, possible maturity with time and wisdom, and really structuring. And I think, as I mentioned, this third phase through gate 22, Saturn is offering us potential wisdom to restructure how we express our individual emotional quality within social settings. And this, again, there's enough dynamics going on, not only on the world stage, but also most likely somewhere in your network of friends and family where navigating emotional interactions right now can be a little tricky, I would say. But again, I think the support here is that Saturn wants to help us. He wants us to develop and mature in how we're able to stay within our authority and express these emotional interactions in these types of situations. Additionally, Mars is moving towards its third trine with Saturn. Having done the first one, Mars went retrograde for over 2 months and is finally moving forward, although still very slowly right now, and currently in gate 53 still, where he's been for some time now in the root center. This is to pressure to start a new cycle of development. It's called the channel of maturation. And this trine is already forming here. And also want to bring in Chiron to this part of the story I want to tell right now. Chiron, still in Aries, moving forward, does not get an activation in our natal human design body graph charts, but we can look at where he is right now, and he would be in gate 42, the gate of growth. And so here we have the full channel, if we were to include Chiron, which is the pressure from Mars to start a new cycle of emotional development. And I feel like that's really the crux of this story here. How we are learning to stay within authority, to meet with triggering, challenging, emotional confrontations, and stay regulated in our body, to use our tools and modalities to breathe, stay calm, and find our voice of truth as we express it in emotional, social interactions. As I'm sharing that, I also need to add another layer to this story, which is that Mercury heading towards its conjunction with Venus is forming a half square with Uranus in gate 23, line 6. Here again, Uranus has already moved through gate 23, spent almost a whole year there, went into gate 8 for a short period, and went backwards through gate 23 and is now moving forward for the third time. Again, these third times covering the same terrain in the chart are very significant. Uranus will be leaving gate 23 in a couple of weeks, won't be back to that gate again for 84 years. So here we are at the end of the Uranus and gate 23 story, and I think Uranus is also sharing something that can be a really wonderful personal contemplation. This is the planet of unusualness, shock, revolution, innovation, new beginnings. It just brings something into the world that hasn't happened in a very lightning-like quality. Well, gate 23 is an individual gate. It's part of the channel of structuring and individuality. It's the ability to share and assimilate with others our unique and creative breakthrough insights. But it speaks to this idea of personal voice of truth and authenticity. And again, I really feel like that's where all of this energy is guiding us right now. Amidst all the chaos and the interactions and dysregulated emotional systems that we may be running into out there, the opportunity that we're being invited into is, what is my truth? Honest, vulnerable, real, and with integrity. And that line 6 is always speaking to the integrity or possible truth of a particular gate. And so here we have Uranus offering that from its third pass. And I mentioned Saturn already in that gate 22, line 6. Again, we can always think about the one of the keynotes of every line six is potential, truth, and integrity. Well, the fact that Mercury and Venus here, both of them about to be in retrograde and a half square to that, and again, they're in that gate 17, we're feeling a dynamic, conflictual, frictional energy of this Aryan push it out into the world, logical opinion, searching for sustainable elevation into the future of the pattern. And but here's Uranus there saying, not so fast. What is the unique individuality of your truth here? So again, adding a bit of friction to the week, but all of it, I think, pointing into these individual gates of 22 and 23 and how we're standing on our unique creative expression within the context of our personal authority found in our natal human design body graph. So that kicks off Monday. Let's go ahead and move it into Tuesday. Here we are. And on Tuesday, again, still just looking at this conjunction here. We'll be exact on Tuesday at 4:54 p.m. Mountain Time. And again, that is happening in gate 17, line 6. And so this draws me back to this head and Ajna center. There's the conjunction of Mercury and Venus in gate 17. I mentioned the Earth this week is in gate 47. And at this chart, we have the moon. Now, the moon moves very quickly, moving through a degree every couple of hours. So it's, we're looking at line 5 at noon Mountain Time. So really from the morning into the early part of the afternoon, the moon will be in gate 4, also part of our logical circuit group in the human design system. So we have gate 47, which is the call the gate of oppression or realization. It's trying to understand and make sense of all the emotional experience from our past. 47 carries unique role, and in a sense, it really carries the mental oppression of everything that happens in the solar plexus. But that's its job, right? It's here to go over and over and try to make sense of the past. And then with the moon passing through gate 4 here, this is called the gate of formalization. This is the logical understanding of the pattern that says, yes, that's what it is. And then here we have this Mercury-Venus conjunction and gate 17, which is the potential awareness to express this new realization. Well, all of that to say, a lot of uncertainty here in the Ajna Center right now. I think as I look at the chart, it's like, man, it's going to be kind of difficult to make sense of everything going on right now. I really think the key to this week, especially with the full moon lunar eclipse coming up, it's following the watery flow. Thinking of water, right? The tranquil, although it can be turbulent like the ocean, to find your piece of the watery flow right now, to stay very centered and to watch and just to be aware, to touch on your personal authority and be stable there and see what comes. This Mercury Venus retrograde, we're not all moving forward right now in that sense. Not all the planets are. And even the ones that are moving forward have just come out of retrograde. So they haven't picked up a lot of speed here. So even though we do have Jupiter in gate 35, which is the gate of progress in the channel of transitoriness, we are all going through a new emotional cycle of experience together. And I think with Jupiter moving through gate 35, also for the third time, I've said that a few times so far, these planets that have gone retrograde and now moving forward, Jupiter has done the same, and it is moving forward through gate 35. And I do think that eventually we are going to get some Jupiterian abundance of progress. But it's sort of just like not so fast right now. And I think really the fact that he's still in line 3, which is part of the lower trigram of that archetype gate 35, we're still dealing with what may be internal progress. I think amidst the chaos and the full moon and where we started with the Pisces new moon and this eclipse, which is all so much solar plexus activation, what we're seeing here is there can be internal progress. right? Really using these keynotes of where the chart is directing our contemplations to look back at our emotional spirit experiences and to suss them out in a sense, to realize that we all have our family of origin emotional interaction experiences, and we develop strategies, whether they're maladaptive or supportive, and how we're handling these emotional exchanges as in adulthood. And I think if we're reviewing all of that, using the chironic ability to heal from past wounds so that we are not as triggered in certain situations by our loved ones, this is part of what's being offered here right now, part of this initiation into this growing in the spiral of emotional maturity. And that's what I really feel is really happening right now. As I mentioned, with that Chiron in 42 and Mars in 53, it just seems like that's the opportunity as that energy flows into the solar plexus, and we're not only in this emotional cycle of growth, development together, but again, the Saturn in 22. How do I fit into the story? How do I honor my emotions and still respect the other person's emotions and find a way for us to eventually commune amicably or supportively as we work in relationships together? But yeah, the Ajna Center, little confusing up there, and that's okay. I think whenever we get overwhelmed or over mentally anxious or confused, it's a chance to stop, breathe, go within, and see what our authority says about our next foot forward. Okay, let's go ahead and head into Wednesday. Whoops. Okay, on Wednesday, yeah, here I just want to mention we did have the Mercury Venus conjunction, and so Venus is now moved through the conjunction, still heading backwards, and Mercury is just about to turn retrograde. But we're still getting both Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday this heavy half square. Half squares are very similar to regular squares. It's just bringing sort of this frictional quality. Something logically doesn't make sense to my internal sense of what I want to express. And again, all of this emotional activity going on in the solar plexus. And for a large part of the daytime, the moon will be passing through gate 59. So we're going to get a short-term transit of the channel of mating, a design focused on reproduction. But I think it's that Uranus half square to Mercury and Venus, and this sense of things may not make sense, they may not be logical. And I think again, it's this idea of a little more patience with all of this defined solar plexus transit energy right now. Patience can be so supportive, and particularly for those of us like myself that are emotionally defined, that's part of our strategy, waiting and waiting for emotional clarity, to go up in our wave and down in our wave, and to be able to look back later and to eventually get a physical felt sense of resoluteness about what that clarity is. I think that can be really helpful for us right now, because right now, shooting from the hip, acting out of just a reactive nature right now, which we've been dealing with because Mars moving through the sign of Cancer, not his favorite sign, he can be a bit passive aggressive or emotionally reactive here. And so again, I think that's part of what the transits are showing us, is how we can navigate where we may feel the urge to be emotionally reactive may not be our best foot forward right now. Additionally, we can also show on this chart here on Wednesday that exact conjunction between the Sun and Saturn has already passed on this noontime chart, but here it is. We have the life force energy of the Sun himself lining up with the planet of discipline, limitations, and structure. And so, wow, what a lead in on Wednesday. We're just barely a day and a half until this eclipse. And that's going to be happening in gate 6. Okay, so woo, I think we're holding on here this week, really. Just find whatever right now I think can calm the senses, add to your sense of creativity, connecting with nature or friends that feel really supportive right now. We're really navigating some uncharted water in that sense. But I think that there's real support for doing those contemplations, asking ourselves, why am I feeling so amped or triggered right now? What can I learn about myself? I think it's in times of dysregulation and overwhelm where if we can look at it from curiosity, being curious rather than emotionally reactive right now, I really think it's going to add to this offering, which is wisdom. There is real wisdom being offered in this chart. In fact, on Wednesday, we've got the sun, the earth, the moon, all in line 6. The nodes are still in line 6. The conjunction between Mercury and Venus was in line 6. Uranus and Saturn are in line 6. All of these line sixes in the gates this week, they're speaking to this idea that we can learn from trial and error and eventually become a role model for ourselves, living out our truth in an authentic way with integrity. And I think that's what we can ask ourselves. Am I feeling that in the midst of these challenging emotional interactions? And I think though that if we can, we're going to come out of this really well. Like it may be challenging right now, but I really think that it's kind of like hiking to a mountaintop can be very physically demanding. But if we know that feeling when you get to the peak and you look down from where you came from, there's a sense of accomplishment and growth. And we're really glad we did it. And I feel like navigating this week is kind of has that same sort of analogy, if you will, I think. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward. We're going to go to Thursday. Now, when I go to Thursday, I don't have a noontime chart. This is the actual exact time of the full moon in Virgo, and it's happening at 12:54 p.m. Mountain Time. So if you're in Pacific Time, it's actually happening before midnight on Thursday. And if you're later than Pacific time, like I am in Mountain Time, it's actually going to be Friday, early, 12:54 a.m. I started to say that right. Yes. Okay. Just after the midnight. Okay. So as we look at the moon herself, here's the lineup. We have the sun having moved into gate 36, putting the earth in its polarity gate 6. And of course, that is where the nodes have already been. And whenever we have a new moon or a full moon within a few degrees of the nodal axis, that is our eclipse season. And so here we're getting this lunar eclipse. And as I mentioned, they are interesting to say the least. It doesn't necessarily mean that something may happen at the stroke exact time of the full moon. It could, but it also, they can actually carry all the way till the next eclipse season. But it can have this sense where if you've been working in a particular issue in your life, a particular area of life, and it has just been maybe a slog or not working out, eclipses do, in a sense, offer the opportunity to end something, or they may end it for you. But it's often after it happens, we look back and go, I kind of knew that was coming. We may not have owned up to it previously, but after the eclipse, it's like, well, I kind of knew that was going to happen. But they offer a real opportunity for a reset, a shift. And where is it happening? Well, it's happening in gate 6. Gate 6 is called the gate of friction. And it is actually what in the solar plexus gates, it's a really important one because it actually is how the wave starts. There's different kinds of waves, individual, tribal, and collective. I don't want to get too in the weeds with human design education right here, but just to say that this is a very important emotional gate. Biologically, it has to do with our pH of what gets in our cells and what doesn't get in. So it has this idea of friction within intimate relationships. Who gets into my tribe? It has that sensation there. But it's a very emotional gate. Here the moon is over here in gate 6 in Virgo, lining up with the south node. And here's the opposition of the moon at full moon to the sun. And there's the north node. Now, as we look at the astrological wheel here, only one aspect really jumps out, and it's Uranus right here. Uranus is forming a sextile to the north node and a trine to the south node and the moon and the sun moon, right? So in astrology, this is actually called the point of Thales. It means that Uranus is in a point of release right here. We have this dynamic tug of war polarity in the opposition, and Uranus is in a position to work with these energies in a sextile and a trine, which tend to be supportive, free flowing, communicative. So it's putting a lot of innocence, emphasis on this gate 23 in line 6 that I was talking about. So that's why I think this is really the key element to this eclipse and the full moon, in the sense that we're dealing with all this solar plexus emotional Piscean energy, not only from the new moon, we've had 2 weeks of it, and here we're culminating in the full moon in gate 6 back in the solar plexus. In fact, gate 6 is the only gate in the solar plexus that's not in Pisces. It's opposite 36, as you can see from the wheel over here in Virgo. So it's bringing this Virgoan mercurial ability to go through all the details, to really hash out the pattern almost with a Virgoan eye, to really organize who is part of my intimate relationships. Who do I allow in and who do I not? And of course, the answer to that question is going to be your personal authority. But that's the framework of the story, and what's being called forth right now is that gate 23. Whether it's defined or undefined, this is a wonderful, in your chart, this is a wonderful contemplation. How am I speaking my totally, brutally honest, vulnerable truth in all emotional situations? It's quite an ask, right? We all know those feelings when we get in these altercations. Sometimes it can be so difficult to share in a balanced, honest, integrous way that really encompasses the full vulnerability of our truth. But boy, I really think that's the symbolism we're seeing here right now. That Mercury is going to turn retrograde shortly after the eclipse full moon, but the Mercury stopped its forward movement in gate 21, line 1. Well, this is the gate of control. And so I think we may hear a lot of voices in the collective world out here trying to say what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to go this way. We're supposed to go that way. We're having all this emotional interaction out there. It the symbolism feels very noisy in that sense. I think it's going to be easy to get pulled off track right now, but if we can stay centered, our center line connected to our voice of truth, wow, it is potent for growth, development, and wisdom, for all the reasons I think I've been sharing so far. And as we can see in the chart, the only other aspects that are showing up a little bit is that Mars is still forming the trine to closing or moving towards the trine to Saturn there, and also forming a square to this challenging energy going on in gates 17 and 21. So the noise tends to be, looks to the chart here, the noise is happening in the collective and the tribal, but if we can stay centered in what our piece of the individual circuit group structure that is, which is always the deepest inner core of who we are, focused on our purpose, our inspiration, and our truth, that's the orientation I think that the chart is offering us right now, where we can find the answers for ourselves. All right. Well, I do hope everyone enjoys this full moon. I always look forward to going out in the evening and taking a look at it and contemplating all these things. It is a potent, powerful lunation, to say the least. And as we come off the full moon, we'll be moving into the next 2 weeks of the waning phase, where all that emotional energy has built for 2 weeks, and now it's going to be dissipating in a sense, maybe not completely. We still have a lot of Pisces gates activated, and particularly with the nodal nodes as well. But the idea of this lunar cycle, it started out with the channel of community. How are we forming our bonds and bargains with each other? We're getting heavy doses of solar plexus activation. So as we turn the corner after this full moon, I think the next 2 weeks are going to be to review and reflect. And as I say that, let me go ahead and move my chart one more day forward. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move it into Saturday. Um, when I say review and reflect in the waning phase of this lunar cycle, we can see that after the full moon, both Mercury and Venus are retrograde in Aries. And so whenever planets are in retrograde, we're thinking about review, re-examine, go back over. Even though we might really want to keep moving in one direction, we need to go back and clean up or look at the details, that there's something there. And I think approaching retrogrades with a healthy, I want to say positive, although I don't want to give uh, too much. I don't tell people what to do in these videos. It can be supportive for ourselves if we approach them with curiosity, with an open mind. Mercury and Venus want to show us something right now, and Mercury again got all the way to gate 21, line 1, but during Mercury's retrograde, which is going to last all the way until April 7th. Okay, we're going to have Mercury pass through gate 17, gate 25. Venus is going to be doing this as well at a little bit different speed, and all the way back to where the nodes are in gate 36. So if you take a look at those gates I've circled and then look at your own human design body graph, these are going to be wonderful archetypes to contemplate while Mercury is in retrograde. Because while he is doing this retrograde, really important details can come to light, right? Like this is the time when we can really relax and pay attention and not get wrapped up in the forward movement, to be patient and review and reanalyze where we've come from, so that when he comes out of retrograde, we can gain the wisdom and the growth and development that a third time through these gates is going to bring to us. So I think that's a real healthy way to take a look at that. Um, if we look at the moon, she'll be passing through Libra here on Saturday. And as she does, she's wanting to bring some emotional balance and harmony and possible fairness that Libra sign is looking for. And again, it may be a little difficult. We've got Mercury and Venus opposite the moon on Saturday, moving in that retrograde. So a little bit of dynamic tension here. But certainly the moon herself looking for the harmony in that, and on this chart passing through gate 48, there may be some depth here. There may be a solution that can arise if we can stay centered and connected to our authority. There may be illuminations and emotional realizations that she can bring us while she's moving through this sign of harmony, balance, and fairness. This is Venus's home sign, Libra. So I think the connection there could provide some insights or illumination. Okay, let's go ahead and move it into the last day, going into Sunday. And here on Sunday, well, here's the moon still traveling through Libra and forming some interesting aspects here. We've got a quincunx to that Uranus in gate 23. We've got a quincunx to Neptune in that gate 25. I haven't talked a lot about Neptune, but of course, all these planets in Pisces are in the sign that Neptune rules. So Neptune's sort of been part of this frequency all along, particularly as Neptune is preparing to finish moving through Pisces and go into Aries. Now, Neptune will turn retrograde and come all the way back into Aries later in the year, so that's for a different transit report, but Neptune's certainly part of this story. But what I'm really looking at right here is the moon making an opposition to Chiron. As I mentioned, Chiron is in gate 42, line 1. So we have the emotional quality of moon in the sign of Venus and Libra, wanting to find some emotional harmony and balance. And this opposition to Chiron in gate 42, I think Chiron, wow, this is really part of our emotional journey, right? This idea that we all are bringing forward from our past challenges, wounds, limitations from previous experience that we're trying to enter in and heal and grow and develop from that. And with that Mars and Chiron in the channel of maturation, there's real chironic potential to heal, to forgive, to move beyond, to teach. Maybe Chiron was one of the most famous not only healers but also philosophers and teachers in Greek mythology. So again, there's something to learn here, and Chiron is trying to show us the evolution of this new spiral of emotional growth and development. And so I think we're going to get a taste of that here on Sunday. So, at any rate, I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all so much for watching. If you get some support or appreciation from my videos, please give me a like or subscribe. Great to help us grow our community. And thank you so much for being with me. And I wish you all a wonderful week. Bye for now.